Two friends, one dream, and an ending no one saw coming. What started as the trip of their lives ended in one of the most brutal scenes Ecuador has ever seen. This is the true story of María José Coni and Marina Menegazzo. Two girls, 21 and 22 years old, who left Argentina with backpacks and dreams and never came back. This case shook all of Latin America. Millions of people followed every detail. And today, I'm going to tell you everything that happened. If you want to know how this case ended and who was responsible, stay until the end. February 2014, Argentina. Two young girls are packing their bags. Well, not bags exactly. Backpacks. Because María José Coni and Marina Menegazzo aren't ordinary tourists. They're backpackers, travelers, adventurers. María José is 22 years old. Marina is 21. They're from Mendoza, Argentina. And they have a dream that thousands of young Latin Americans share: to travel the continent, see the world, live experiences they'll never forget. But here's the thing, this isn't their first trip together. These girls already have experience. They've traveled before. They know the rules of the road. They know how to get around, how to take care of themselves, how to be smart. That's why they're families. Although worried as any family would be, trust them, because María José and Marina are responsible. They're careful. They're smart. The plan is simple, but exciting. They're going to travel through several South American countries. They're going to experience new cultures, new people, new places. They're going to live the adventure they always dreamed of. And at first, everything goes perfect. Peru is their first stop, and it's everything they expected. The mountains, the landscapes, the food, the people. Everything is incredible. María José and Marina are living their dream. They're doing exactly what they wanted to do. They post photos on Facebook, share their experiences. Their families see the photos and feel more relaxed. The girls are fine. They're happy. They're enjoying themselves. After Peru, they decide to go to Ecuador. It's February 2014. South American summer is at its best. Ecuador is known for being a beautiful country. Mountains, beaches, jungle. It has everything. The girls arrive in Ecuador with energy, with excitement, with that emotion only a traveler understands. That feeling of discovering the world, of living something special. First, they pass through Quito, the capital. Big city, full of history. They walk through the historic center, meet people, take photos, everything normal, everything good. Then they decide to go to the coast, because after the mountains of Peru and the heights of Quito, they want to see the ocean. They want to feel the sand. They want that beach vibe that Ecuador offers. And this is where the story starts to take a turn. They decide to go to Montañita. You know Montañita? It's a small town on the coast of Ecuador, a place that's super popular among backpackers, among young travelers, among people looking for good waves for surfing, beach parties, and that relaxed coastal town atmosphere. Montañita is known throughout South America. It's one of those places that appears on all the must-visit lists. It's the type of place where you arrive knowing no one and end up making friends from 10 different countries. But it's also a place that has a dark side. Like many tourist places, Montañita attracts all kinds of people, not just innocent travelers looking for adventures. It also attracts people with bad intentions, people who see tourists as easy targets. María José and Marina arrive in Montañita at the end of February. It's high season. The town is packed, full of music, people, energy. It's exactly the type of place two girls aged 21 and 22 would be looking for. They stay at a hostel, one of those cheap places where backpackers stay. Shared beds in big rooms. You know the type. It's part of the experience. You meet people, share stories, make friends. And at first everything seems to go well. The girls go out, get to know the town, go to the beach, enjoy themselves. Do what any tourist would do. But there's something you need to know about this moment in the story. Something that makes everything that comes after even more disturbing. María José and Marina maintain constant contact with their families. This is important. They're not the type of people who disappear for days without warning. No. They call, send messages, upload photos. Their families always know where they are. Until one day, they don't know anymore. February 27th, 2014. This is the last day anyone knows for certain where María José and Marina are. That day, the girls do something completely normal. Something millions of people do every day without thinking twice. They post on Facebook. Marina uploads a photo, a selfie. She's smiling. She looks happy. The location says Montañita, Ecuador. Everything seems normal. Everything seems fine. But that's the last sign of life their families receive. Days start to pass. 1, 2, 3, and there's no news from the girls. No calls, no messages, no Facebook updates, nothing. The families start to worry. At first they think maybe the girls are in a place without signal. Maybe they went to the jungle. Maybe they're at some remote beach. Maybe their phones ran out of battery. Maybe there's a simple explanation. But the days keep passing, and the silence becomes deafening. The mothers of María José and Marina start doing what any mother would do. They try to call. Once, twice, 10 times. The phones go straight to voicemail, like they're turned off. They try to contact the hostel where the girls were staying. And this is where things get weird. The hostel tells them the girls aren't there anymore, that they left. But where? With whom? Why didn't they tell their families? The families start making posts on Facebook. Has anyone seen these girls? If you're in Ecuador and have seen María José Coni or Marina Menegazzo, please contact their families. The posts start getting shared. Once, 10 times, 100 times, thousands of times. Because this is what happens when a story like this goes viral. People want to help, people share, people search, but there are no answers. Only more questions. March 5th, 2014. It's been several days since the last sign of life from the girls. The families make a decision. They need to do more. They need to go to Ecuador. They need to search for their daughters themselves. The mothers of María José and Marina travel from Argentina to Ecuador. Imagine what that trip must be like. The desperation, the fear, the uncertainty. Not knowing if your daughters are alive or dead. Not knowing if you'll ever see them again. They arrive in Montañita. They start asking questions, showing photos. Have you seen these girls? Over and over. At the hostel, at restaurants, at stores, at the beach. Everywhere. And this is where details start to emerge. Small pieces of information that start to form a picture. A picture they don't like at all. Some people remember seeing the girls. They saw them at the hostel. They saw them at the beach. They saw them talking with other people. Travelers. Locals. Everything seemed normal. But there's something else. Something that makes the mothers' stomachs turn. Someone remembers seeing the girls talking with a man who wasn't from Ecuador, a man who spoke Spanish but with a foreign accent, a man who seemed to be alone, who seemed to be traveling too. The mothers give this information to the Ecuadorian police, and the police start investigating. But here's the problem with cases like this. Montañita is a small town. There aren't many security cameras. There isn't much technology. It's a place where people come and go, where no one keeps a detailed record of who's who. The mothers don't give up. They hold press conferences. They appear on television, on radio, in newspapers. Please, if anyone knows anything at all, help us find our daughters. The story becomes international. It's not just Ecuador. It's not just Argentina. It's all of Latin America. People are following the case. They're sharing the photos. They're trying to help. But days pass, and there are no breakthroughs, no concrete leads, nothing. Until March 20th, 2014 arrives. Exactly 1 month after the last sign of life from the girls. And on that day, everything changes. March 28th, 2014. Someone is walking near Salinas. You know Salinas? It's another coastal city in Ecuador. It's about 130 kilometers from Montañita. Not far, but not next door either. This person is walking through an area that's not very busy, an area that's a bit remote, among the vegetation, and they see something that makes them stop dead. Bodies. 2 bodies. The person calls the police immediately. The police arrive, and what they find is one of the most horrible scenes they've ever seen. 2 bodies of 2 young women. They've been there for weeks. The condition these bodies are in is so bad, they can't be identified at first glance. The heat, the humidity, time, everything has done its work. But there's something the police can see even in that state. These women didn't die of natural causes. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't anything innocent. These women were murdered. And not just murdered. They were murdered in a brutal way. In a violent way. In a way that makes it clear whoever did this wanted to hurt them badly. The police take samples, DNA, fingerprints if possible, everything they can to identify these victims. And at the same time, they contact the embassies. Because if these are the missing Argentine girls, their families need to know. Even if it's the worst news in the world, they need to know. The results take a few days, but when they arrive, they confirm what everyone fears. The bodies are María José Coni and Marina Menegazzo, the girls who left Argentina with backpacks and dreams, the girls who just wanted to travel and see the world, the girls whose mothers have been desperately searching for them for a month. Those girls are dead. When the mothers receive the news, it's devastating. It's the worst moment of their lives. It's every parent's worst nightmare come true. But here's the thing. When something like this happens, when such a horrible crime occurs, 2 things happen. First, the pain, the grief, the loss. Second, the need for justice, the need for answers, the need to know who did this and why. The families want justice. Ecuador wants justice. Argentina wants justice. All of Latin America is watching this case, waiting for it to be solved. The Ecuadorian police start working. They have the bodies. They have the crime scene. They have something to work with. The forensics do their job. And what they discover is even more horrible. María José and Marina weren't just murdered. They were tortured. They were beaten. They were attacked in multiple ways. And all of this before dying. This wasn't a robbery gone wrong. This wasn't an accident. This was something planned, something intentional, something done by someone who wanted to make them suffer. The police start looking for clues. Who saw the girls last? Who were they with? Where were they going? And names start to appear. People who were in Montañita at the same time as the girls. People who met them. People who talked to them. One of those names is of a man several people remember seeing with the girls. A man who wasn't from Ecuador. A man who was also traveling. The police start investigating this man. Who is he? Where is he from? Where is he now? And this is where things get complicated, because this man is no longer in Ecuador. He left. He left the country days after the last time anyone saw María José and Marina alive. But the police have technology, have resources, have ways to follow the trail. They discover this man is from Argentina, just like the girls. He's a young man, about 30 years old, and he has a record. He has a history of violent behavior, of problems with the law. His name is Eder Valderrama, but he also has another name, Nelson Núñez. He uses 2 identities, 2 passports, 2 lives. The police start putting the puzzle together. The girls met this man in Montañita. They talked to him. According to witnesses, the man seemed nice, seemed friendly, seemed to be just another traveler. But he wasn't just another traveler. He was a predator. He was someone looking for victims. And María José and Marina unknowingly trusted him. The police theory is that this man convinced the girls to go with him. Maybe he offered to take them somewhere else. Maybe he told them he knew a better place, a cheaper place, a more interesting place. We don't know exactly what he told them, but we know the girls went with him. And at some point along the way, things went terribly wrong. The man took them to that isolated area near Salinas. And there, far from any help, he attacked them, tortured them, murdered them, and left their bodies there, thinking they would never be found. The police have a suspect. They have a name. They have an identity. But there's a problem. A big problem. This man is no longer in Ecuador. He's already left the country. And finding him isn't going to be easy. The Ecuadorian police issue an international arrest warrant for Eder Valderrama, also known as Nelson Nunez. Interpol gets involved. This is no longer just an Ecuador case. It's an international case. The authorities start tracking the suspect's movements. Where did he go after leaving Ecuador? Is he in Argentina? Is he in another country? And this is where technology plays an important role. Because although this man thought he could escape, he left a trail, a digital trail, flight records, border records, bank records. The police discovered that after leaving Ecuador, the suspect moved through several countries. He didn't stay in one place. He was constantly moving, as if he was running, as if he knew they were looking for him. The families of María José and Marina are following every development, every news item, every update. Because for them, this isn't just a case. These are their daughters, and they want the person responsible to pay for what he did. The media throughout Latin America are covering the story, not just in Argentina, not just in Ecuador, in Chile, in Peru, in Colombia, in Brazil, everywhere. And people are angry. They're outraged because this could have happened to anyone, to any traveler, to any young person trying to see the world. Social media explodes with the hashtag of the case. People share photos of the suspect. If you see this man, call the police. He becomes one of the most wanted men in South America. And after weeks of searching, there's finally a lead, a concrete lead. The authorities locate the suspect in Argentina. He's in Buenos Aires. He's trying to blend in, to disappear among millions of people. But he can't hide forever. The Argentine police, in coordination with the Ecuadorian authorities, plan the capture. They have to be careful. They don't want the suspect to escape. They don't want there to be mistakes. And finally, after weeks of searching, they capture him. News of the capture spreads fast. The families of María José and Marina receive the call. They've captured the man they suspect killed their daughters. But capturing him is only the first step. Now comes the legal process. Now comes the trial. Now comes the part where they have to prove this man is really guilty. Ecuador requests extradition. They want the suspect to be tried in Ecuador because that's where the crime occurred. But there are legal complications. There are always legal complications in international cases. The extradition process takes time, months. During this time, the suspect is detained in Argentina. And during this time, investigators are working. They're gathering evidence. They're building the case. And they find more evidence, much more evidence. They find the suspect's DNA on the victims' bodies. They find evidence that the girls were in the suspect's vehicle. They find proof that the suspect was in the area where the bodies were found. But perhaps the strongest evidence comes from another source, from something the suspect didn't expect. His phone. His cell phone has data, location data. Data showing exactly where he was the day the girls disappeared. And that data matches perfectly with the route from Montañita to Salinas, to the exact place where the bodies were found. It's incriminating evidence. It's evidence that's very hard to explain. The suspect has lawyers. And his lawyers try to argue the evidence isn't enough, that it's circumstantial, that it doesn't prove anything. But the prosecution has a strong case. Very strong. It has DNA. It has location data. It has testimonies from people who saw the suspect with the girls. It has forensic evidence from the crime scene. The legal process takes its course. And finally, after years of waiting, the time for the trial arrives. The trial becomes one of the most followed cases in recent Latin American crime history. The families of María José and Marina are there. They've waited years for this moment. for the chance to see the man they suspect killed their daughters face justice. The courtroom is packed. There are journalists from several countries. There are people who followed the case from the beginning. There are human rights activists. There are people who simply want to see justice. The prosecution presents its case, and it's a devastating case. They present the evidence, photo by photo, document by document, testimony by testimony. They show photos of the girls, photos of when they were alive, when they were happy, when they were traveling, and then they show what happened to them. It's horrible. It's hard to watch. Several people in the room cry. The prosecution explains how the suspect met the girls in Montañita, how he gained their trust, how he convinced them to go with him, and how he took them to that isolated place where he attacked and killed them. The defense lawyers try to create doubt. They try to suggest the evidence isn't conclusive. They try to argue their client is innocent. But it's difficult. Very difficult. Because the evidence is overwhelming. The witness testimonies are consistent. The people who saw the suspect with the girls identify him. Without doubt. Yes, that's the man I saw with them. The forensic evidence is clear. The DNA matches. The location data matches. Everything matches. And then comes the moment everyone's been waiting for. The moment when the suspect has the chance to speak, to explain himself, to tell his version of the story. And what does he say? He denies everything. He says he's innocent. He says yes, he met the girls, but they separated and he has nothing to do with their deaths. But his story has holes, many holes. He can't explain why his DNA is on the bodies. He can't explain why his location data puts him at the crime scene. He can't explain why he ran out of Ecuador days after the girls disappeared. The jury hears everything, all the evidence, all the testimonies, and they retire to deliberate. The time it takes the jury to deliberate feels eternal for the families. Every minute is torture. Because even though the evidence seems clear, you never know. Trials can be unpredictable. But finally, after hours of deliberation, the jury returns. The judge asks the jury foreman, "Have you reached a verdict?" "Yes, Your Honor." "What is the verdict?" And the jury foreman says the words the families have been waiting to hear. Guilty. Guilty of murder. Guilty of the murders of María José Coni and Marina Menegazzo. The room explodes. Not with celebration. There's nothing to celebrate. 2 young girls are dead. But there's relief. There's a sense of justice. The person responsible has been found guilty. The mothers of the girls cry. They've waited years for this moment. And although nothing can bring their daughters back, at least they know the person responsible is going to pay. The judge proceeds to pronounce sentence. And the sentence is severe. Very severe. Because this wasn't an ordinary crime. It was a brutal crime. It was a premeditated crime. It was a crime showing extreme cruelty. The suspect is sentenced to decades in prison. He's going to spend the rest of his life, or at least most of it, in a cell, paying for what he did. After the trial, the families give statements to the press, and what they say is powerful. It's emotional. It's something everyone needs to hear. The mothers talk about their daughters, about who they were, about their dreams, about their personalities, because they don't want María José and Marina to be remembered only as victims. They want them to be remembered as the people they were, young, full of life, full of hope. They talk about the importance of travel safety, about how young travelers need to be careful, not because the world is completely dangerous, not because they shouldn't travel, but because there are bad people out there. People who see tourists as easy targets, and they talk about justice, about how they fought for years to get to this moment, and about how, although nothing can bring their daughters back, at least now they have answers. At least now they have closure. This case had a huge impact on Latin America, not just in Argentina, not just in Ecuador, everywhere, because this case touched a nerve. It touched something many people feel but don't always want to admit, that traveling, especially for young women, can be dangerous, that there are risks, that there are bad people waiting to take advantage of innocent travelers. After the case, there were debates throughout the region. Debates about tourist safety, about what governments can do to protect travelers, about what hostels and tourist places can do to keep their guests safe. Some places in Ecuador implemented new security measures, more cameras, more police in tourist areas, better registration systems for hostels. But there was also a broader debate, a debate about machismo culture, about violence against women. Because although men are also victims of crimes, the reality is that young women traveling alone or in pairs face specific risks, risks that can't be ignored. The case of María José and Marina became a symbol of the importance of travel safety, a symbol of the need for justice, a symbol of the strength of families who don't give up until they get answers. Today, years after the crime, the families of María José and Marina continue working. They work with organizations that support families of crime victims. They work to educate young travelers about how to stay safe. They work to keep the memory of their daughters alive. Because that's the other goal. They don't want their daughters to be forgotten. They want when people hear the names María José Coni and Marina Menegazzo, they don't just think about the crime. They want them to think about two girls who loved to travel, who loved adventure, who loved life. And they want their story to serve as a warning. Not a warning not to travel, but a warning to travel smart, to be careful, to trust your instincts, not to put your safety at risk by being polite or by not wanting to offend someone. The lessons from this case are harsh, but they're important. First lesson: stay in touch with your family and friends when you travel. Tell them where you are, who you're with, where you're going. It doesn't have to be every minute of every day, but a regular message, a call, something that lets them know you're okay. Second lesson: trust your instincts. If something feels weird, if someone makes you uncomfortable, if a situation doesn't seem right, trust that feeling. Don't worry about being rude. Don't worry about offending someone. Your safety is more important than a stranger's feelings. Third lesson: be careful who you trust. Not everyone you meet traveling is a good person. Most are. Most travelers are good people looking for the same thing you are. But not all, and you can't always tell who's who. So be careful, especially when it comes to going to isolated places with people you just met. Fourth lesson: travel with friends when possible. It's not always possible. And many people travel alone and are perfectly fine. But there's safety in numbers. Two people together are less vulnerable than one person alone. Fifth lesson: research the places you're going. Know the safe areas and dangerous areas. Know common scams. Know the risks. Not to scare yourself, but to prepare yourself. And the most important lesson: your safety is worth more than any adventure, worth more than any photo, worth more than any experience. Because no experience is worth it if you don't live to tell about it. The case of María José and Marina is tragic. It's horrible. It's the kind of story that makes you want to hug your loved ones and never let them go. But it's also a story that needs to be told, needs to be remembered. Because only by remembering, only by learning, only by being more careful, can we hope to prevent stories like this from happening again. María José Coni was 22 years old. Marina Menegazzo was 21 years old. They had their whole lives ahead of them. They had dreams, plans, hope. And all of that was taken from them by someone who decided their lives were worth nothing, but their families, their friends, all the people who knew them, all the people who followed their story. We all know their lives did matter. They mattered a lot. And although they're no longer physically with us, their memory lives on, their story lives on, and the lessons from their tragedy live on. They live in every traveler who decides to be more careful, in every person who decides to trust their instincts, in every family that maintains closer contact with their loved ones who are traveling, in every person who hears this story and decides they're going to do something different, something safer. That's the legacy of María José and Marina. Not just their death, but what their death taught the world, what their death changed, the lives their story has saved because people learned from their tragedy. And that's the end of this story. A story that doesn't have a happy ending. It can't, because 2 young girls are dead, and nothing can change that. But it has an ending where there's justice, where the guilty person was found, where the families got answers, where the world learned important lessons. And maybe, just maybe, that's the kind of ending Maria José and Marina would have wanted. Not that they died. They would never have wanted that. But that their death served a purpose. That their story helped other people. That their tragedy made other travelers safer. Because at the end of the day, that's what we can do with tragedies. We can learn from them. We can remember them. We can make them mean something more than just pain and loss. We can honor the memory of Maria José and Marina by traveling, exploring, living, but doing it smartly, safely, in a way that our families don't have to go through what their families went through. That's our duty, as travelers, as human beings, to remember their story, to learn from their tragedy, and to make sure their deaths weren't in vain. María José Coni and Marina Menegazzo, 2 girls who just wanted to see the world, 2 lives that ended too soon, 2 names we should never forget. Rest in peace.